Lulu, a greeting to our listeners. Three people, two women and a man have died after a three-story building used as a church collapsed on worshippers in the Ghanaian capital of Accra yesterday. Interior Minister Muntaka Muhammad Mubarak said 20 others, most of them women and children, had been rescued and were being treated in various hospitals. Emergency teams worked through the night under floodlights, searching for victims inside the structure's remains. The cause of its collapse, which happened after heavy rain, is unknown. The Amaxhosa royal family in South Africa's Eastern Cape province says it will fight to protect the sovereignty of the people of the province and Amaxhosa territory. This as the community of Buffalo City marches against the unauthorized coronation of the Nigerian Igbo king at Kumgompo City. This follows videos circulated in social media showing coronation ceremony held at the city earlier this month, causing an uproar. Inkosi Khanti Bambilizwe Sikau of Amaxhosa's royal house says they are to make a mark and call on legal steps to be taken.
It is totally unacceptable. We cannot allow our sovereignty to be undermined by whoever, not necessarily directing this to the Nigerians. So we're just putting a call to everyone throughout the world to know that this is the territory of Amaxhosa and no one must undermine that.
The High Court in Johannesburg, South Africa, has dismissed the former President Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki's application in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission cases inquiry matter. The two had approached the court seeking the removal of the retired Justice Sisi Kampepe from the inquiry, with Mbeki also asking for action already taken by the commission to be set aside. The court found that their failure to follow the correct legal process rendered the application invalid. Zuma and Mbeki have also been ordered to pay legal costs. The chairperson of the African Union Commission, Muhammad Ali Yusuf, says he has noted the results of the presidential election in the Republic of the Congo, as announced by the Constitutional Court, and extends his congratulations to President Denis Sassou Nguesso on his re-election. Nguesso is back at the helm following presidential elections held on the 15th of March. In a statement, the AUC chairperson also congratulated the Congolese people for the conduct of the election and encouraged all stakeholders to continue their efforts towards strengthening peace, national cohesion and democracy. The African Union has reaffirmed its readiness to support the people and government of the Republic of Congo in their effort to consolidate stability, democratic governance and development. And lastly, Myanmar's military chief Min Aung Hlaing has been nominated for the presidency as parliament convened this morning. This follows a general election from which the biggest opposition parties were excluded. Min Aung is certain to be chosen as he was nominated in parliament alongside two loyalists who are very unlikely contenders for president. He has been sanctioned by many Western countries for leading a military coup 5 years ago. The election held between December and January were touted by the junta as a pathway for peace, but the vote was widely viewed as a sham, with many popular parties banned from standing and large areas of the country not allowed to participate because of a civil war. Now, for any news or stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, the AFCON tournament has been expanded to 28 teams from 2027, while the South African women's cricket team now lead the one-day international series against New Zealand 1-0. I'll tell you more at the bottom of the hour.
This is Africa Update, your pulse to the continent. Stories shaping nations and voices driving change. Stay informed, stay connected, right here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
It is 12:06 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on Channel Africa from an African perspective. Coming up in this hour, Pakistan has announced it is ready to host talks between the United States and Iran, and South African political party Action SA is protesting the recent coronation of a Nigerian Igbo king in Gugombo, formerly East London. I'll stay connected to Africa and the world with Channel Africa, the international voice of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Watch or listen anytime, anywhere at channelafrica.co.za, on the Channel Africa mobile app and on SABC Plus, or via the DSTV and OpenView audio bouquets. You can also catch us on social media at Channel Africa on Facebook and at Channel Africa 1 on all other platforms. Channel Africa, first with the African story globally. On hashtag Africa Update, our South African political party Action SA is protesting the recent coronation of a Nigerian Igbo king in Gugombo, formerly East London. Now, the party says the coronation is a breach of South Africa's sovereignty. Now, we want to know, do you agree with their stand, and would you allow someone from another country to come and breach your sovereignty? I'll share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +27 83 288 6684. Hashtag Africa Update Us.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 7 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Uganda is returning rhinos to the wild for the first time in more than 4 decades. The move marks a major conservation milestone and highlights South Africa's role in rebuilding Uganda's rhino population. Michael Baleke has more.
In northern Uganda, 8 southern rhinos have been released into Kidepo Valley National Park. It's the first time rhinos have roamed this landscape since they were wiped out by poaching and conflict in the 1980s. John Makombo, the Commissioner, Biodiversity Management at the Uganda Wildlife Authority, says the animals were raised at Ziwa Rhino Sanctuary, where Uganda has rebuilt its population to 61.
After 43 years of rather extinction, we have initiated a program to take the rhinos back into the national parks where they used to live. It's a very big landmark for us as Uganda Wildlife Authority as we take these rhinos back.
South Africa has played a key role in Uganda's recovery efforts. In December 2025, 8 rhinos, 4 female and 4 male, were donated by African Parks in KwaZulu-Natal. James Musinguzi, the executive director at the Uganda Wildlife Authority, says the aim is to restore the species across its historic range and support tourism.
Tourism conservation is the sector number 2 in the 4 sectors that are going to propel Uganda's economy to the 10 times or tenfold growth as a strategy which has been set by the government of Uganda. Therefore, we must innovate, we must do things differently, we must repopulate our conservation areas for tourists to be able to come and enjoy Uganda.
Dr. Patrick Atimnedi, the Assistant Commissioner, Veterinary Services, says strict monitoring is key as the animals adapt to the wild.
Rhinos are monitored 24/7. So we attach people to the rhinos and they keep with the rhinos. So you have a night shift and day shift. But of course, also when we got these rhinos from Ziwa yesterday on immobilization, we fitted horn transmitters and LoRa ear tags for remote monitoring.
Uganda is also expanding rhino habitats, including relocations to Ajai Wildlife Reserve. Conservationists hope the population can now establish itself in the wild. Michael Baleke, SABC News, Kampala.
Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you will be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África. Com Moreno Samo e João Yabalá.
O conflito militar envolvendo o Irão, os Estados Unidos e Israel provocou uma escalada acentuada nos preços do petróleo, especialmente devido à ameaça de interrupção do tráfego pelo Estreito de Hormuz, responsável por cerca de 20% do consumo mundial de crudo. Para países africanos dependentes de importações de energia, esta tensão não é apenas um problema económico, mas também social, com impactos potenciais sobre inflação, custos de produção e acesso a combustíveis essenciais. Para perceber os riscos e possíveis respostas, falamos com o Dr. Lutumba Simão, economista angolano.
Para os países exportadores, vão verificar uma receita mais alta do que previam. E do ponto de vista de custo para as populações, vamos identificar que também pode aumentar a inflação, principalmente naqueles países onde, de fato, importam o crudo e os combustíveis derivados do petróleo bruto.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update, only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African perspective.
It is 12 after 12 Central African time, coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Pakistan has announced it is ready to host talks between the United States and Iran in what could mark a significant step toward de-escalating the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Pakistan says both sides have expressed confidence in its role as a mediator following weeks of quiet diplomacy. However, uncertainty remains over whether these talks will be direct or indirect, and neither Washington nor Tehran has formally confirmed participation. The potential negotiations come amid continued violence, rising casualties, and growing fears over regional stability, with tensions also affecting global oil supplies and key shipping routes like the Strait of Hormuz. And to help us unpack these developments and what they could mean for the region and the wider world, we're joined by Amir Bahriromo, a South African Iranian independent political analyst and writer focusing on Iran, the Middle East and global power dynamics. Amir, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and it's lovely to be with you.
You know, Amir, we've spoken about the challenges that's unfolding in the Middle East and, the possibilities. Now, Pakistan has positioned itself as a mediator. How significant is this development and why would Pakistan be a credible go-between?
I think for the Pakistani government, this is, a crucial moment to showcase that as a nuclear power themselves, they have the credibility and capability to showcase themselves as an objective party in this entire conflict and contribute to the end of this ongoing Israeli-US war against Iran. We know that other countries such as Turkey and Oman were trying to play that role as an objective party. Unfortunately, however, the US side betrayed, diplomacy in those processes and decided to surprise attack Iran nonetheless. Now, whether there is any likelihood for these negotiations to take place, as an analyst, objectively, I'm not sure if we can really count on them, purely because of the ongoing pattern of US's betrayal towards diplomacy, but purely because the Iranian side has shown that it is not interested in any negotiations whatsoever, especially now that it finds itself slightly having the upper hand as far as a war and economic strategy is concerned. So what we can do is just, observe and see which direction it goes. But for now, I think the Iranians are not interested in the talking.
Now, how much leverage do both sides really have at this stage of the conflict? You're speaking of the fact that now Iran seems to have the upper hand. But can we really just be holding on to that? Or is there a way to bring the US to the party as well as Israel to ensure that this war ends? Because in actual fact, it is a war.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I don't think Israel wants the war to end. I don't think that was their position. I don't think that is their position. I don't think that will be their decision. They seem to be very committed to this war purely because it's not only a strategic war, but relatively a theological war for them. But for US and Iran, it's a different story. They have negotiated in the past directly and indirectly. There have been different times in historical points that they have reached agreement. So we can kind of assume that kind of a negotiation is possible. The unfortunate part here is that US has betrayed these negotiations a number of times, and it has created somewhat of a trust issue for the Iranian counterpart to trust these processes. Now, I do agree that we really, really need to find some sort of a leverage on either of the sides to bring everybody back to the negotiation table, as difficult as it may be, purely because the entire global economy is affected by this negatively, and both US and Iran understand that they do not want another economic depression in the world, specifically one that they'll be blamed for by global economy. And I think it is that faith in multilateral cooperation and globalization that they need to have in mind. We will also showcase both sides as relatively world superpowers, that the two of them can come together and resolve this issue and rescue the world from further damages as far as economic damage is concerned. But as I said, I'm not necessarily seeing the Iranian side being flexible enough to sit at the negotiation table, nor do I see the Israelis want this war to end, and neither do I see the US wanting to come up with a deal that might humiliate them from a foreign policy and defense point of view. So it's a very tricky situation.
Is it really about optics? If we look at the US and how they do not want to be humiliated by Iran, and at this point in time, the dynamics have changed because now the whole world is now impacted and affected. Should everyone be standing on the sidelines, or is it time that all the other powers or all the other countries stand up and say enough is enough?
I think that's what it will eventually come to. You're right. It should be about the optics, but it really isn't about the optics. I think it has become about, the US President Donald Trump's ego more than anything else. But I do think the eventual solution to this is everybody having to stand up and say that enough is enough to all sides involved. And by all sides, I don't necessarily mean just the US and Israel and Irani side, but the entire Persian Gulf states and the neighboring countries who are allowing US and Israel to continue using their territories to assert these kinds of attacks on Iran. And European powers, global South, global North, they all need to really come together and tell everyone enough is enough. Otherwise, this will turn into a doomsday that nobody is really, wanting to welcome in their political economy.
Now, Amir, we've seen a bit of Iran strategy, so to speak, in terms of with the expectation being only to directly hit Israel. But looking at almost the whole Middle East, and whether Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Oman and Bahrain, this was not expected. This is something that was totally different in terms of their approach to how they handle things to this particular point. Which countries or which leaders do you think would be able to bring all parties to the table? Is China? Does China stand a chance? Does Russia stand a chance?
Fantastic question. I just want to address the earlier part of your question. You mentioned that this was not expected, and I do understand because a lot of the global leaders spoke about it as if it wasn't expected. But when you look at the documented interviews with Iranian leaders for years, they have been saying that should America or Israel attack Iran, this will immediately become a regional war because of all the Persian Gulf states being stakeholders and investors in the kinds of technology and defense systems that are in the region, and that will automatically make everybody complicit. And I think that is important because it's not that Iran just attacked these countries out of desperation, but it's been really warning the entire world and the region that any further investment in American defense forces in the region will basically turn into a regional war. So for me, at least, it wasn't unexpected or surprising to see Iran taking that route because it had been warning the world for a number of years that this is what it will turn into. Now, which countries have the best, I think, role to play as far as objective influence is concerned? China can be a key player, but to be honest, I think the BRICS bloc really should come together and think about this situation, particularly because Iran is a BRICS member now, and there are a number of countries in the BRICS bloc that have showcased themselves to be relatively neutral and respected on all sides. I think South Africa can play a very positive role in that. China can certainly play a positive role in that, and perhaps a number of other countries from different regions, perhaps Brazil can come through and play a role. Canada with the liberal posture that they have taken, and speaking of this new world order that they're foreseeing for the future, they can play a positive role. So basically, member states that have relatively been soft powers or middle powers in the past, they can come together as the new objective neutral forces that can bring everybody around the table and create a certain level of trust that all sides can feel comfortable with, and hopefully negotiate a ceasefire and an eventual end to the war for many years and even hopefully decades to come.
And just for interest's sake, Amir, we're looking at, we're speaking of Pakistan and how they've positioned themselves as a mediator. And then on the other hand, you look at India, where there is conflict between India and Pakistan, which has been a long-standing conflict, and they have a different view of what is happening. This is now India compared to what Pakistan is calling for. How do we read that?
Fantastic question. I think India as a member of the BRICS bloc has been playing a very interesting foreign policy game where it really does position itself as a country that has the global South's interests at heart. But in the face of public, they are constantly cozying up to the Western powers. We know on the day that Israel and US attacked Iran, Mahindra Modi was in Israel, talking to the Kennets, and that was relatively strange. They are discussing potential military cooperations between the two countries and so forth, and that is exactly why find countries such as Pakistan having to find new allies in the region as well. They go to Saudi Arabia with a defense pact. They are continuously speaking with Iran and the US. I do foresee that these kinds of alignment and association, both by India and Pakistan, will only provoke both countries and will unfortunately, and this is not a fully informed opinion, but relatively uninformed from my end. But I do think it will contribute to the tensions between the two countries, as they seem to be choosing sides in this war as well. Which, as you can look, it is on the opposing end regardless.
Amir, key demands or red lines for both Washington and Tehran going into any potential talks, what are they?
I think, if you look at the pattern of US demands, it's, the complete dismantling of Iran's nuclear program, limiting or dismantling Iran's missiles program, and so many other things. I don't think the US positions has been that consistent. I don't think they had a unified strategy when they came in. They've gone from full unconditional surrender to many other, things. So the US sides, I don't know. I don't know what is it that I don't know what it is that is it. They redlined. They've communicated way too many things. But Iran's requests or Iran's demands are relatively consistent. They've showcased what is it that they need. They say that they might be willing to limit their nuclear program, but they will not limit their missile program. They will also not compromise on welcoming any more US troops into the region. As a matter of fact, they have asked for complete withdrawal of US security forces from the region and a guarantee that no further wars will be imposed on Iran for many years to come. So Iran seems to have a strategy, a certain level of consistency in its demand. US, it changes quite regularly, and I think that is an indication that they are relatively desperate to get something going, but how they are going to go about it is still unclear. And I think the EU and other US allies are relatively frustrated with US's lack of strategy for a potential exit from this war.
And with that frustration, why are they not calling them out?
I think they have learned that they are dealing with a bully of a president. You're dealing with a president that calls, his closest allies a terminology that is even hard for me to say on this interview. I'm not sure, if protocol or policy might work against me, but that's the kind of president you're dealing with. Egotistic, a bully, and the Europe is unfamiliar with, having an ally that is this unpredictable. So I do empathize with them, but I do think that as a collective, they need to really come together and see how it is that we're going to move forward. Otherwise, they just have to embrace themselves and accept this for the next 3 years to come, because that is how long, the US is going to maintain its posture under Donald Trump. And it's just bad for global North, bad for EU. I'm sure it's embarrassing for all of them.
Yeah. Well, Amir, it's always a pleasure chatting to you, and hopefully we'll be able to speak further on this with the new developments. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
That's Amir Bakhrioromi, a South African-Iranian independent political analyst and writer focusing on Iran, the Middle East and global power dynamics, joining us on the line.
Your life, your rhythm, your Africa. Channel Africa. Find it for free on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Today on hashtag Africa Updates Ask, South African political party Action SA is protesting the recent coronation of a Nigerian Igbo king in Gugombo, formerly East London. Now, the party says the coronation is a breach of South Africa's sovereignty. Now, do you agree with their stand, and would you allow someone from another country to come and breach your sovereignty? I'll share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +27 83 288 6684. Hashtag Africa Update asks. Now stay connected to Africa and the world with Channel Africa, the international voice of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Watch or listen anytime, anywhere at channelafrica.co.za, on the Channel Africa mobile app and on SABC Plus, or via the DSTV and OpenView audio bouquets. You can also catch us on social media at Channel Africa on Facebook and at Channel Africa One on all other platforms. Channel Africa, first with the African story globally. It is 12:30 Central African Time, and our news headlines up next.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Gunmen attacked a university community in Nigeria's Central Plateau state, killing at least 13 people. This is the latest violence in a region long plagued by deadly farm herder conflicts. South African political party Action SA is protesting the recent coronation of a Nigerian Igbo king in Gugompo, formerly East London. The party says the coronation is a breach of South Africa's sovereignty. And Iran fired multiple waves of missiles at Israel today and has vowed to punish the aggressor as Israeli forces pounded Tehran and oil prices rose after Yemen's Houthis entered the war in the Middle East. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And a very good afternoon from the sports desk. I am Musibu Dimakura with your latest sports news. At the Sawa, we'll start here. So Africa's football governing body, CAF President Patrice Motsepe, has announced that the Africa Cup of Nations tournament will expand from 24 to 28 teams. Now, the surprise move revealed after an executive committee meeting is now aimed at showcasing more of the continent's top talent through details of the new format, as well as the timing is yet to be confirmed. Motsepe insisted that the 2027 finals in Kenya, Tanzania as well as Uganda will go ahead as planned, with another AFCON scheduled for 2028 before the tournament shifts to a 4-year cycle. Now, CAF also plans to launch a Nations League from 2029 with a 16-team finals every 2 years. Still on football news, now 3/4 of fans of Premier League clubs are against the use of video assistant referee. That's according to a survey by the Football Supporters Association. Just under 8,000 fans responded to the survey, which asked supporters of the 20 sides in this season's top flight of their views on VAR. Of those asked, 90% disagreed with the introduction of the technology in the Premier League and has now improved the match day experience, and 91% believe VAR has harmed the spontaneity of goal celebrations. Now, a total of 94 disagreed that VAR makes watching football on television more enjoyable. In a statement responding to the result, the Premier League said that they recognize the importance of minimizing the impact of VAR on the supporters' experience. On to some Formula One news now. Four-time world champion Max Verstappen says he's considering quitting Formula One at the end of the 2026 season, citing frustration with the sport's new regulations. Now, the sweeping rule changes introduced this year brought new power units as well as changes with the greater reliance on electrical energy. Verstappen, of course, Max Verstappen, who had also voiced concerns before the changes were effected, has grown increasingly dissatisfied as Red Bull struggled in the opening rounds of the season so far. His comments raise fresh questions about the future of one of Formula One's biggest stars. On to cricket news now. Proteas women's sensation Kyla Reinaga was short of words after another day to remember in the green and gold jumper, this time making her ODI debut for South Africa. The 20-year-old scooped the player of the match, going in the first of 3 matches against New Zealand in Christchurch on Sunday, where she contributed 42 runs and also held her nerve to hit 2 sixes in the final over to win the game with literally the last ball. Renega's display in the 50-over match was a continuation of her meteoric rise in senior international cricket after bursting onto the scene in the T20 internationals. She says that although she was anxious, it was a special performance that kick-started her career.
Just trying to take it all in. I mean, ODI debut again. Debut again. It was a pretty special moment. I mean, obviously it was very stressful, but I think when you stay as calm as possible in the moment, nothing is impossible.
All right, so that concludes your sports news at this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, remember to send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Alternatively, call us. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa is moving faster, smarter, further. The conversations are changing. The questions are deeper. The voices are stronger. So, we ask ourselves, what should Africa sound like now?
Not louder, sharper. Not more noise, more meaning. Something powerful is coming. A new standard for the conversation. A new rhythm for the continent. I love it. I love it for us. Oh my goodness. Please join us as we celebrate.
The African perspective is evolving. Catch it all next month, Monday to Friday, from before sunrise until long after sunset, only on Channel Africa. Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you. With a business update, I am Chanduko Ligege. Fuel prices in Nigeria have reached record high levels as maximum output from the giant Dangote Petroleum Refinery has failed to shield the country from the energy market impact of war in the Middle East. The 650,000 barrels per day refinery, Africa's largest, became fully operational early this year. It was designed to transform Nigeria into a major exporter of refined products after decades of inadequate refinery capacity. In the past, that repeatedly led to fuel shortages, but government subsidies kept pump prices low. Sudan is stepping up efforts to rebuild its energy sector after years of conflict, with a renewed focus on expanding renewable power. The country's Minister of Energy and Petroleum, Sasim Ibrahim Ali, said widespread damage to electricity infrastructure has disrupted supply nationwide, prompting urgent work to restore generation, transmission and distribution systems. Michael Mbewe reports.
Sudanese Minister of Energy and Petroleum, Mutassim Ibrahim Ali, says his government is making greater efforts to rebuild critical energy infrastructure damaged by years of conflict, while also advancing a transition toward renewable energy, particularly solar and hydropower.
South African citrus farmers are reporting isolated cases of diesel shortages as the industry braces for a fuel price increase, potentially impacting the fruit export season, which starts in April. South Africa's Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources says the country's fuel supplies will remain stable in the near term despite the war in the Middle East, which has unsettled energy and transport markets and disrupted global shipping. South Africa, the world's second largest citrus exporter after Spain, exported a record 3.05 million metric tons of citrus in 2025, which is an increase of 22% over the previous year. Malawi is facing rising economic losses from climate change, currently costing the country around 1.7% of its gross domestic product each year. Experts warn that losses could reach between 3 and 9% by 2030 and up to 16% by 2050 if trends continue. These figures were highlighted at the 5th African Regional Conference on Loss and Damage in Lilongwe, which concluded on recently. George Mango reports.
At the conference, discussions highlighted that Cyclone Freddy alone affected over 2 million Malawians in 2023, underscoring the economy's vulnerability. Experts and policymakers noted Malawi's substantial losses to climate change, now impacting infrastructure and communities.
A Russian oil tanker carrying hundreds of thousands of barrels of crude oil is expected to dock in Cuba this week after President Donald Trump told journalists that he has no problem with Russia sending oil to the island. The U.S. imposed a fuel blockade in January and had threatened sanctions on any country that delivered crude oil to Cuba. The BBC's Will Grant has the details.
It isn't clear whether the comment represents a reversal of Washington's fuel blockade policy or a temporary softening. Cuba has been facing long and widespread blackouts across the country, including several nationwide collapses of the electrical grid in recent months. The Cuban government and the Trump administration are in talks to find a route out of the crisis, but both sides have publicly set out certain political and economic red lines, which make it hard to see where they could find common ground.
$1 in Nigeria is 1,000 naira 833, Botswana 13 pula 090, Kenya 129 shilling 091, Zambia 18 kwacha 78 countries, $1 in Brazil, 5 real 24, Russia 81 rubles 450, India 94 rupee 52, China 6 yuan 91, South Africa 17 rand 99 cents. $1 is 75 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Commodities: gold is trading at $4,535, platinum at $1,937 per ounce, the price of Brent crude oil at $115.67 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 12:41 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. South Africa's embattled police minister, Senzo Mchunu, has been placed on special leave, has challenged the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, to produce evidence supporting the latest allegations of wrongdoing against him. Mchunu has vehemently denied ever meeting with the former National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Shamila Batoyi, in an attempt to coerce alleged criminal cartel member Vusmuzi Katmatlala to make a statement denying that they know each other. He said Mkhwanazi should bring concrete evidence when he returns to the Madlanga Commission. Ayanda Mhlongo has more.
The saga between Police Minister Senzo Mchunu and KwaZulu-Natal's Police Chief, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, continues. Mchunu has hit back following new information presented by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi before Parliament's ad hoc committee last week, including a letter from an inmate alleging corrupt links between Mchunu and Matlala. The letter further alleged that there was an attempt by Mchunu's lawyers to coerce Matlala into signing an affidavit denying he knows Mchunu. Mchunu refutes these claims.
I've never met Advocate Shamila Batoyi. I have never met her with the person that the letter or him are alleging happened. It has never happened on earth up to now. Now, I was quite taken aback by a police officer, senior like him, taking that piece of paper, place it in front of the ad hoc committee, as he did, without any backup, without any cross check, and to say this is evidence.
He is now demanding that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi produce evidence to support his claims, including Mchunu's alleged ties to criminal syndicates.
Please, let us be decent. We may not like people, and then we make allegations about them, but please, bring evidence. So I advise in that letter that he should take whatever evidence to the Madlanga Commission.
Mchunu has also confirmed that he's resuming his party duties as a member of the ANC's NEC and NWC. He voluntarily stepped aside from his party role to deal with this matter. He remains on special leave from his cabinet position.
The letter that I wrote it on the 26th of March, and I said, as from the 26th, that very day, I'm now resuming my responsibilities in the NEC and the NWC. Yes.
Mchunu maintains his innocence, saying all the allegations made against him are intended to tarnish his reputation. He says he's ready to return to the Madlanga Commission soon. I am Mhlongo, SABC News, Kwambonambi.
Africa's story shines at 60. Channel Africa.
The African perspective.
It is 12:45 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our South African political party Action SA is protesting the recent coronation of a Nigerian Igbo king in Gugombo, formerly East London. The party says the coronation is a breach of South Africa's sovereignty, and the party argues the event disregards the country's traditional leadership, particularly the Amahaghabe kingdom in the province. Action SA parliamentary leader Athol Trollip has described the move as outrageous.
We just believe it's an extreme provocation. Imagine you or I going to another country and establishing a kingdom there. It just smacks of disrespect. And I've noted that the Nigerian embassy have responded quite quickly in saying, you know, it's nothing serious, it's no disrespect, it's a ceremonial event. But equally, I've heard Nigerians talking about this event in South Africa and saying it's unheard of that you go into somebody else's country and you establish a kingdom. But what really pricked me was that when one of the Nigerians at the event said that they're going to establish a Nigerian homeland in the Eastern Cape under the Igbo king, and that they must encourage hundreds of thousands of Nigerians to come to the Eastern Cape to establish this homeland. Now, that's what really got me going, because in the Eastern Cape, we have the legacy of having had two homelands, and we are still battling tremendously to deal with that apartheid relic legacy. And now you've got somebody from another country establishing themselves and being coronated as a king. And it's just completely outrageous, because the Eastern Cape, as you might know, has 5 recognized kings. And the Amahaghabe is a kingdom in the area of Gugombo and Ekonge. And we're just going to make a statement today with many other South Africans that it's completely disrespectful and unacceptable for a foreigner to establish a kingdom in somebody else's land.
That was Action SA parliamentary leader Athol Trollip, and he says their concerns are not xenophobic or anti-immigrant. It is 12:47 Central African time, and Athol Trollip now joins us on the line. That's the Action SA parliamentary leader. You know, it's interesting, Athol, how this has unfolded, because initially when it came out, the news broke, everyone thought it was a joke. Now, clearly, this is happening and it is unfolding. What is your take on? You've already touched on how the Nigerian embassy or High Commissioner responded, and should we take this lightly?
Absolutely not to be taken lightly, and if I can judge by the sentiments and the passion that was on display today during the march, that the people of the Eastern Cape have taken this announcement of the coronation of an Igbo king from Nigeria in Gugombo, East London, have taken that as very serious provocation. You know, we have 5 kings in this province that are recognized constitutionally and by the president. They also are people that have become kings and chiefs through bloodlines, and they are deeply respected in the Eastern Cape. Now, this supposed Igbo king and his spokesperson said that they're going to establish a homeland in South Africa for Nigerians. Now, the word homeland has got a very painful connotation and a painful past. We have 2 former homelands in this province, and we are not going to allow the establishment of another homeland, certainly not under the leadership of a foreigner who has no right to establish a kingdom in the Eastern Cape. So this should really not be taken lightly. And for the Nigerian embassy to say that this was just a ceremonial gesture, well, it's caused a lot more anger and outrage than just a ceremonial gesture. There really is deep outrage. And I'm very sorry that at the march today, there was an incident where one of the marchers was stabbed. We don't know by who yet, but the allegations are that there was a scuffle with a foreigner. And then the march just degenerated into anger, overflowing of anger by the people in the march, which is very, very unfortunate. But this is what happens. The passion's running high and the sentiments are very, very loud and clear in the Eastern Cape that there is deep anger at this proclamation.
Now, can you clarify whether Action SA has engaged with the South African government or the Amakgakgabe Kingdom to address their concerns about the coronation? And if so, what response have you received?
Well, we were here to engage with the Amakgakgabe and all the other kings of the Eastern Cape, and even people from KwaZulu-Natal were represented in the march. We were here in solidarity with their outrage. They themselves in Contralesa have communicated with the president and the government to say that they have their own demands about having the government making an unambiguous statement about this. We were here in solidarity. We have no right to engage the president or the government on behalf of our traditional leaders. They have constitutional recognition and they will speak on their own behalf. But we were here in solidarity, and I'm very pleased we were here in solidarity because the people of the Eastern Cape live in an impoverished province and they've had enough of being overrun by illegal immigrants. And I want to make it quite clear that Action SA has no opposition to legal immigration. We know that we live in a global village and skills go where skills are required and where there's a vacuum, so we appreciate and respect that. But we will not allow our country to be overrun by foreign nationals that are here illegally.
Now, what message do you have for the Igbo community and other foreign nationals living in South Africa who may feel that your party's protest is targeting their cultural practices?
Well, I want to say to that community that are here legally that we respect their right to be here legally, and we welcome them. We're a very welcoming province and country. People talk about South Africa as being really a welcoming and warm country. But there is never any way that we are going to simply turn a blind eye and turn away from the fact that we are overrun in this country by illegal immigrants that drive illicit trade, that are involved in all sorts of criminality. These are issues that are very important to us as South Africans. And Action SA is a South African political party, and we are going to represent South Africans that are affected by these things that I've just mentioned. The fact that illicit trade is completely out of control. It drives jobs. It drives away jobs for local South Africans. It's illicit. They don't pay taxes. We don't benefit from the revenue of illicit trade. And we've had enough of it, quite frankly.
I wish we had more time, but we are going to have to leave it there for today. And just for interest's sake, the individual that got stabbed, are they in hospital? Were they rushed to hospital? What is the situation there?
Well, they had called an ambulance and he got onto the vehicle where some of the chiefs and myself were standing to make representations. And he pulled up his shirt and there was an enormous gash in his back. And there was just blood everywhere. And they said that they had called an ambulance. So I assume that he's been picked up by an ambulance and taken to a hospital because he very definitely needs hospital attention.
And your message to South Africans who may be thinking that this is not much of an issue, but could turn into an issue, what is your message to South Africans?
My message is mainly to foreigners that are in this country illegally to be very careful how they conduct themselves, because South Africans have had enough of illegal immigrants in this country taking the law into their own hands. And what I saw today was terribly unfortunate, but there is an upswelling of anger towards illegal immigrants in this country. And this kind of provocation of establishing a kingship right in the middle of the Eastern Cape, it was always going to be disastrous.
Well, Ethel, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. We'll leave it there for today. That's Action SA Parliamentary Leader Ethel Trollip joining us on the line.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
As I draw comparisons with Cameroon, a leader that's been there for a long time, opposition dealing with a lot, and legitimacy questions always raised after each election. Are we going to have the same situation in Congo-Brazzaville where people will say it wasn't free and fair, but there are just no consequences?
In the past, there have been some attempts exactly contesting elections, and all the elections actually in Congo-Brazzaville have been marred by allegations of fraud. There have been contestation in the past, but the result of the contestations actually have only been the imprisonment of the leaders, etc. So I think all the means actually are in a way to control the situation and avoid what happened in Gabon earlier or what happened in Cameroon. So in a way, the situation might be different.
Remaji Hoinathi, who's a senior researcher for Central Africa and the Great Lakes.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
That time of day where we say a happy Monday to Double Kuleni of the Upside team.
Happy Monday.
Yeah.
Lulu, how are you doing?
I'm all right.
Fantastic. Here's what's coming up on the Upside this afternoon. It's a Monday and we talk all things property. You know, when you read a property description, if you're looking to buy a property in the market, you read the description and it says, this is a stunning property. Very, very beautiful property. Ads such as those don't guarantee anything. If a home has hidden problems the seller didn't know about, they are usually not legally responsible. So it's on us as the buyers to read properly when we buy property. So we'll be unpacking a case that has recently been judged where a buyer said, you did not disclose that this property had this many problems, this and that and that. And the seller was like, no, but we didn't know about it either. So they are not liable for that. So we're going to be unpacking what that means for you as a buyer and all the rights that you have. And then a Nigerian cultural festival, which is meant to celebrate fertility, is currently under fire after claims of misconduct. The leaders of the festival say it's being misunderstood, and the police are currently investigating possible abuse during the event. What happens when you attend cultural events and the leaders thereof allegedly start abusing the people on the ground? We'll be unpacking some of those.
All that and more coming up at the top of the hour on the Upside with Debokole Kuleni and Matseko Musito. I'll be continue on that.
The sound of Africa is evolving. Experience our new mobile app. Free to download, free to connect. Channel Africa 1060. 6 decades of stories, voices, and vision. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Well, today on hashtag Africa Updates, our South African political party Action SA is protesting the recent coronation of a Nigerian Igbo king in Gugompo, formerly Eastern Cape. Now, the party says the coronation is a breach of South Africa's sovereignty. Now, do you agree with their stand, and would you allow someone from another country to come and breach your sovereignty? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook, at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +2783 288 6684 hashtag Africa Update Us. Now stay connected to Africa and the world with Channel Africa, the international voice of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Watch or listen anytime, anywhere at channelafrica.co.za, on the Channel Africa mobile app and on SABC Plus, or via the DSTV and OpenView audio bouquets. You can also catch us on social media at Channel Africa on Facebook and at Channel Africa 1 on all other platforms. Channel Africa, first with the African story globally. And that's how we wrap Africa Update today. It's been a good one. Continue with us on all our social media platforms. And let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.